We will be going live now. So, boom, we're live. And today I want to say thank you to everyone joining us. And I want to say a massive welcome to Simon and Andy, who are joining us today from Cloudapps. Simon, Andy, brilliant to have you today with us.
Thanks, Sam. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it today because we've got a real important topic that we've looked at before, and there's a number of things that we're going to be touching on and to get the audience involved with as well, for the audience to learn from. But I guess I'd love to start really, Simon, Andy, come to you first, Simon. If I could just get a bit of, and the audience could get a bit of a knowledge of what your background is, who you are, what's led you to be with Cloudapps today. And I know, Andy, we were talking around both having our time in Birmingham, but it would be good to start with you, Simon, and to you, Andy, about exactly that, please.
Yeah, sure. So, I've actually sort of lived my life in the area of CRM from the sort of very, very early days when I was at Accenture, doing the very early customer systems for some of the large banks, etc. And then took that through Siebel, and then most recently Salesforce. But one of the things that we found with the Salesforce technology, or we were finding with the customers, was that the technology is absolutely amazing, but the process and the ability to be able to benefit and get the maximum value out of the CRM just wasn't there. So we then founded Cloudapps off the back of that, and our chairman is also the chairman of or the ex-chairman of Salesforce in Europe as well. And so we set up Cloudapps to help address that particular challenge around the effectiveness and efficiency of the salespeople themselves, sort of the people and the process side, I guess, of the success of, for these projects. I'm a little bit of an engineer, closet engineer in the background. Don't often admit this, but I'm a computer scientist from as my sort of degree background, etc. And hence that sort of beautiful intersection between sales and where I've been doing that, and then the technology. That's kind of where we sit in that middle piece. And so we bring both the domain expertise and the technology expertise together to sort of maximize the value for our customers. So I'm one of the co-founders of Cloudapps, which we founded a number of years ago. Sort of around that premise I've just been discussing, and I actually I run the sort of operations side of our business, so the COO, looking at and also look after the product and the customer side as well, and thoroughly enjoy helping these large customers that we have.
Love it. And Andy, what about you, sir?
Well, I'm not an engineer at all. I'm not technical, but I've spent my life in sales and marketing. So yeah, whether that's startups, SMEs, to big corporate, and my last big corporate gig was a company called ACI, selling payments. So I'm a payments geek by background, and met Simon at Hadnam Tame Parkway train station about 3.5 years ago, and he told me about what Cloudapps do. I've spent my life trying to get my teams to fill in CRMs, put data in and allow me to forecast, to help the organization, to help us. And we talked about Cloudapps, and I joined the other side to try and help companies like ACI and big corporates to get better at this. So I joined the company, and Simon and the co-founders put me in charge a year ago to date. So it's been a great journey and loving it. But no, I love taking a product like this and a solution like this, and it's a really nice way to have conversations with customers and prospects.
Yeah, I love it. And it's very close to I wish I'd known about this product when I was working at Sogeti. So Sogeti's a subsidiary of Capgemini, and being marketing, it was an area that always got onto my angle. And I remember doing it when I was in my entry-level roles, the amount of data entry I'd have to do to update the CRM, the amount of things I'd have to do to help the sales team. And just looking through the stats of what you've shown through Cloudapps is awesome, because you can do up to 20% better sales efficiency is what I read, and the way that you can help customers and really pull it through. And I think from a marketing angle, I'm a marketer, and people say, oh, you must know loads about data and you must know loads about data science. I'm like, no, I'm not the expert. That's why we do these lives, to bring people, or whatever topic might be, IoT or cloud, and had my stint in engineering. But I guess I want to start off. So looking at the challenges that we might have, I always don't like to say challenges, but opportunities. How important is sales forecasting? So maybe you can take an industry as an example, or whatever example you want, and maybe just display, Simon and Andy, to how sales forecasting can help the business, or it can help the team, and and why it's so important, especially in today where everything's becoming digital, so many bloody channels to go across. You can access customers through God knows where. I'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, let me take that one. I mean, sales forecasting in general is the lifeblood of an organization. And we deal with B2B organizations, B2B sales.
Yeah.
So essentially, if you're forecasting incorrectly, your shareholders are not going to be not very happy. Yeah. It's all about predictability of your business. That's what shareholders love. And also, if you're not able to forecast reasonably accurately, you're going to have a problem with resource utilization as well. Yeah. So there is a back end impact. If you're selling too much, can you deliver it? If you're not selling enough, have you got too many resources lying around on the wrong project? So essentially, there's a massive revenue impact, but there's also a trust impact as well. So it's about believing in the organization, its direction, and the numbers stand behind that. Without that, you don't really have much credibility. So it's a real C-suite, top challenge, and it's the nirvana is to get as accurate as possible, so you can see that predictability. Yeah. But equally, from the rep side, if you're in control, like if you're in control of your own business, then you're going to have predictability in your own sort of pipeline, your own renewals. So if you're consistently high performing, it's got to be sustainable. You can't be performing at high levels and then next year have nothing. So this whole piece around getting a decent forecast in place, having predictability in sales is so vital to every part of the business, just internally as well as the shareholder aspect.
Yeah, I think it's a great point as well. And it really, I always think one of these books I was reading, it's just like any business that can be consistent, or anything that can be, any department that can be consistent. It's like when you have a team member, it's the one that you trust, like a big key word, trust, and making sure. And I think if you can have those kind of results at your fingertips, what you were discussing, Andy, it's so important, and it can really help drive the business. It can help a lot more avenues as well, because if you know what's coming in, you know what's happening, you can drive new R&D, you can drive new products, you can drive better resources. And I think it's a great way. So I'd like to ask the question then, where do you see it from Cloudapps, or where have you seen it? And again, pick a certain industry type, or stick maybe a kind of general rule. Where are businesses going wrong? And then maybe as a follow-up, where I don't know if this is the right question, where are people going wrong? Where does that come from to get that predictability and that kind of better forecasting, as you said?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a secret that the stats come out, that less than half of businesses get their forecasting reasonably accurate. So in one big study that was done recently, I think it was 27% of businesses said that they were getting forecasting about right. And even then, are you actually predicting the right deals? So it's okay getting to a number, but what deals are going to come in, or is it covered deals coming in? So you might be leaving a huge opportunity on the table by covering when you can actually focus your resources on the right deals. And I think the challenge comes down to a couple of main things. First one is this whole piece around getting data in, getting a good piece of data. Yeah. Right? So it's always, every conversation I have is, the salespeople aren't putting data in, and the salespeople are saying, why are we being asked to put data in when we should be selling? So that sort of dichotomy is always been there and always will be there. But those companies that are actually going about it in the right way, which is explaining the value of this to the people who are having to not only sell, but also put the opportunity data, the renewal data into a system of some kind. What is it in it? What's in it for them? How do you motivate people to spend time to do that vital task? So if you can get that bit right, and we work with a lot of companies on that particular piece, motivating a change in their mentality, which is, I want to be out there selling rather than doing stuff. Actually, the stuff is really, really important. So using sort of gaming mechanics to actually give people an incentive to put stuff in, then you're gonna start to make some good strides in getting your data base sorted. The other aspect of this is actually, what is the benefit to the organization? What is the overall benefit to the organization? So how are we all going to come out of this in a much better state? So when you come in with a deal from absolutely nowhere and you've overachieved your numbers, actually, can you deliver it to the customer? Can you deliver, or are you going to create dissatisfaction? So if you can display the right sales behaviors as well as hitting the right lagging KPIs of hitting the number, you're going to have a much better situation. And I think this articulation of the message needs to be from top down in the right way. So it's all about communication. So Simon, do you have anything to add to that particular point?
I've got a couple of things there. I think that picking up on the first one where you're talking about sort of getting it out the notebooks, the sales notebooks into the system. What we often find is that, you know, salespeople, you know, they like a good negotiation stroke transaction. You know, if you give me that, I'll give you this. If you give me that, I'll give you. So to actually have an ability to be able to provide that for them, which is, if you give me this data, we'll give you this in return, right? Whereas they forget about the giving in return normally. They just say, you give me the data, thank you. Right. So what we're able to do is to provide that sort of negotiation stroke transaction for them, which they, you know, which they value, and that can be in the terms of you know, just gamification like we're doing. So we're incentivizing them through competition and those types of things. It can be providing information back to them, which we'll talk about a bit later, around, you know, the predictability or why the deal's at this prediction, explaining it and this sort of stuff, so they can decide whether to include it in their forecast or not. So they're getting this additional value basically back. Once they give the data, then they're getting something back, and that's that transaction that they, you know, that they enjoy. Yeah.
The other thing, Tom, that actually Simon built me a diagram to explain what I was thinking here. Because you sort of live in diagrams, Simon, don't you? You're a very pictorial person, which is good because it sort of gets my head, you know, onto the right area. If you look at the way forecasting is done, typically it's like a one-dimensional forecast. You know, you've got bottom up, you know, so sales reps forecasting into managers, into leaders, and then so on and so forth. Then you get some sensitivity analysis overlaid with that, with some contingency, and you know, you improve your guess rate basically. If you can overlay that with you know, AI machine-based forecasting and put this two-dimensional forecasting approach, you actually get a situation that leadership and executives will love, where you can pick the outliers. So if the machine and the human agrees, you're pretty much going to have a good result. You should do. But if you're going to predict a win when reps are predicting it's not going to win, or it's, you know, going to move out, there's an opportunity. Equally, if we're predicting a loss and the reps saying it's going to win, so you can start to focus time and effort and extensive resources onto the right thing. So this two-dimensional forecasting approach is definitely where people should be heading. Yeah,
I love that as well, because if you're pushing people towards those right directions that you just mentioned, Andy, you're going to give them more time to do that kind of data entry, which is so vital, because I always think it's the small things that lead. Like, if you don't take care of the small things, how are you going to take care of the big things? And if you haven't got that kind of information there when you're going in to upsell them or close them on a bigger deal or whatever it might be for that particular business, how are you going to keep that thread? I mean, I've used Salesforce many a times, and I've used HubSpot, and personally I think Salesforce is 10 times better than HubSpot, because I think, like, the tracking and how you can use it, and that's a personal opinion. But I also know going into it that if I don't have that information lined up as a marketer, when a sales team would come to me, I'd think, why haven't you? Because now it's going to have to go backtracking now, and you're still going to be quick. And I believe in speed at lead and being super fast. And if you don't get those small things, it's such an important point. But I guess I'd like to move it to, there is an art, right, between the science of selling and what part it is, how much selling do they do, and how much do they actually manage and look after the CRM and use things like that you and Cloudapps are using, like behavior analytics and using deep learning and machine learning to really power them to do more. How, I'd love to know, before going into that side of the conversation, where Simon, I think I'll come to you a bit more on it, but from your side, Andy, what's the roles and importance of the sales rep today? You've touched on it, but I'd love to know from a kind of, the world's changing very quickly, a lot more channels, a lot more digital, a lot of people working from home, people are doing deals with, you know, multiple different countries at much quicker scale. How's it all changing, and what's the importance of the sales rep today, Andy?
Yeah, I think the importance of the sales rep hasn't changed. I mean, it's going to be vital. You know, the world-class sales people that are out there doing complex enterprise deals, you're never going to be able to replace the capability to run a process, to run a deal, to have that trust, build that face-to-face interaction. When I say face-to-face, I mean face-to-face via this channel or actually physically, because obviously things have changed. But what's happened is that the capability through data enhancement, the tools available, the technology advancement that's happened is actually helping reps to become a lot more efficient. And this is that whole sort of process of change and explanation, because often there's a pushback, which is you're throwing stuff at me, and I haven't got time to sell. Actually, it's a bit like the football analogy, where the more time you spend on the practice field, the better you're going to be when you're delivering. And if you have that type of mentality, and you've got the ability to use these intelligent tools to be able to give you the data, because again, we've all heard the sort of stats about the buyer journey changing. The buyers are out there, they know 60%, whatever that stat is, more about you than they ever did before. But actually, you are able to then fine tune your time, your efforts to be as relevant, as specific to that particular prospect customer at the point in time. And this is where our view is that you're augmenting the sales function capability. And that's that message. If that got out there, I think you get a lot more buy-in, first of all, from the field, who are going to see it as a value enhancement as opposed to another thing yet to do. So once you're augmenting that function, you can build upon the world-class capabilities of these reps in a much more complicated world than you've ever been in before. And then you should be able to see higher performance. And I go back to that point about these lagging KPIs of quota, hitting your number. If you can overlay what desired behaviors are you looking for, what are the best people doing, capture that data and try and reuse that and share that amongst the team, you're going to move a lot more of the team over towards being successful. That's the point I'd say about the art versus the science. I think both still apply, and the science is definitely coming in a lot more.
And I'd agree. I think if you look at the world of the sort of autonomous cars at the moment, no one's going to sit in their car today and trust it just to sit in the back seat, make a cup of tea, right, and trust it to go along. This is an augmented situation whereby the car manufacturers are bringing in different sensors and capabilities and understanding and presenting that, by either presenting that information back to the individual so they can make the decision, or in some cases actually starting to make those decisions and then let the person override, and the kind of needle starts to move between them. And slowly then the customer builds up trust in that, and actually then starts to think, well, I'm quite happy with that now, right, so let's move on to the next one and the next one. And to me, that is what will happen with the introduction of AI into multiples of areas, not just sales, which is obviously the area that we specialize in. But that concept of just going to replace a salesman is just not going to happen in the short term, short time frame. However, you do see it. People are buying quite expensive things like cars and this sort of thing at the click of a button now, and just going on and configuring a Tesla. And so there is disruption in the industry, but it's not the norm, right? So they like that human touch. They like, and particularly in business to business, then that will remain, and that relationship piece is absolutely vital. So what we feel we're doing is we're providing an augmented experience, and that will grow over time as they build trust with these with these predictions or enhancements or whatever it is that's being provided by the AI.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes me think as well, like I don't know what my price limit is to buy something online. Like you think, like, what would I buy online? Would I buy a house online? Probably not. Would I do things? And you just think, I don't actually know where my own limit is. Like it's thinking, but then you go and buy a nice holiday online. I don't even speak to a salesperson anymore. There's no one in the loop. I don't go to the travel agent. They don't have to be prepped for all the questions I'm going to hurl at them. I kind of, to your point, Simon and Andy, I kind of just trust them to think that's the best deal you're going to give me. And you're obviously utilizing a lot of technology in the background. And I don't always want to have to speak to a salesperson. But if I'm buying a platform, if I'm buying a service, or if I'm buying an expensive watch or whatever it might be, I'm just trying to think of things people might buy. I can never picture buying a car, just buying one, coming off the line and going to pick it up with no human interaction. But that's what's pretty much happening at the moment, or it seems it's going that way, that you don't need to do that. But I'd like to know, further to that question, and Simon, for you as well, I think this question, with the way that technology is playing, and you talked about augmented intelligence and all these things, although the salesperson is always going to be important, sales teams are always going to be needed. Is there something you've seen over the past 5 years, or maybe through the pandemic, which rapidly shifted us all to digital? Has there been something where you've seen it improve or kind of change? And Andy was touching on it, but change the kind of traits of a salesperson, what's needed, or what's bigger? Is it a certain characteristic, or have you seen certain things happen with a salesperson with these new technologies coming in?
Yeah, I mean, Andy, please feel free to kick in this as well into this bit. But what I mean, as you quite rightly put out there, there is a change in the skill set of the salesperson, and so we've seen a shift in the types of salespeople that people are bringing on board into their businesses, particularly the large enterprise type businesses that we've been working with. They're bringing a lot more inside sales on board, and then providing them with the digital capabilities to be able to then be effective in their role. And those are multiple. They aren't a single platform like a Salesforce. They're bringing in LinkedIn. They bring in a marketing system. They bring in an AI tool for conversation analyzing. They bring in content platforms. They bring in AI like us. They bring in effectiveness like our gamification type pieces. And so it ends up as a sort of a collection of solutions, which I will see that consolidating over time. But at the moment, it's a collection of which have to play well together, right, in the sandpit. So they have to integrate very strongly. But from the salesperson's perspective, they've got access to so much more information to make it much more of a personal experience and a personal understanding of the value that it's going to deliver to the to the company they're working with, and that to me is their role. It isn't to be doing the sort of day-to-day stuff that has typically been there in the past, or to go and visit them and play golf with them and those sort of things. Those and also and this is something we have to be careful of with the salespeople, is that they, of course, are doing a lot more of these conversations in their day, right? So as typically they might do 2 meetings in a day, right? They'll go into London and do something, and then they might meet somebody else or a customer or whatever, and that's their day. Now they've got 6 back-to-back, half-hour meetings or whatever it is that they're doing. They have to flip between the two, etc. So they are having to cope with a lot more. A lot more information, and being able to switch between these conversations and customers, much more rapidly. Yeah. So I mean, their role is changing definitely, and the more traditional sales is still there for us, and we're seeing that at the higher end. The companies are continually moving the sort of boundary from inside sales to field sales or enterprise sales, whether it's by size of company or size of deal or product they're looking at, or whatever it is that's appropriate.
But I've seen opportunities in this as well, because overnight we had this big transition, and you had access to decision makers, no matter where they were. So those that leveraged the opportunity, the tools available, were able to very quickly access people. As Simon mentioned, having back-to-back meetings, it's been a bit of a challenge on the home working, well-being type stuff, because when do you put it down? But actually, the buyers were not sort of traveling on planes all the time. They were not in a head office in New York. They were at a home place, and so getting access to individuals, and the digital selling model where you are deploying SDRs, inside sales, going through that buying journey, matching the buying journey very quickly, has led to restructures within companies and growth in certain parts of the sales function. So these sales teams are segmented now, yet virtually joined up with multiple functions that lead to potentially a very, I'd say, a faster, more successful enterprise sale. And again, the technologies that are able to support each of those functions, and in the case of AI, you can have an overlay which is actually then tailored to the particular area you're selling in, whether that's enterprise sales, SMB sales, inside sales. So there's been for me a huge amount of opportunity for people to grow, and there has been some enormous growth, and the companies that haven't been able to get onto the change that quick have suffered a little bit, but they're getting there. They're getting there.
Yeah, all through powerful apps like Cloudapps and using CRMs and how important it is. Because I think you framed it much better. The answers are brilliant, because I could have framed the question a bit better. But the way I was looking at it is, when I was moving industry, the tech industry just moves so quick at times. Like the amount of people, when I'll speak to a sales team, they can book God knows how many calls in a day. When I was in engineering, booking a call, there was a lot of process to go through, and like doing a demo, you can do 5 demos in a day now in like a software platform thing. And you just think the mindset shift that took me, or that I didn't have to change my mind shift too much because I'm not a salesperson, but you think him looking at a salesperson that is still, I guess, in a traditional, well, not traditional, it's just needed. You need to be in person, you need to show how the conveyor works, you need to show how the machinery works, and it can be a full 1 week operation just to do a demo, and you might not get the business. And then looking at something where you can do 5 demos in a day and you might get all 5 pieces of business, I think the behavior behind that and the kind of way that how you do that when pandemics come in to do all that digitally, it kind of flabbergasted me. I was like, how do you do that?
I disagree, Tom. I think you are a salesperson. Look how the AI journal's grown in the last 2 years.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, just I class myself as a marketer. Maybe it's all just a big trick.
And I think the risk here is the old turn up and chuck up kind of approach, which is that you can't arrive at these meetings and not be prepared, and the buyer will not tolerate that anymore. Not understanding their business, not understanding their business challenge that they're trying to solve, the value of that challenge, whereas before they kind of entertain that, you'd have time to kind of work that out, etc. You've got to be able to flip between those, and work with those individuals.
Yeah, love it. And then if we flip it slightly, so I'd like to ask about the kind of technology side and how people can build with future success and have better predictions, as we've been touching to. How can they do it with things like, we've touched on it at the beginning of the call, but how can they use machine learning or deep learning? How does this come into their business? How does this come into their software, or how does it come into their processes? Because we were talking about it beforehand, and Simon, me and you hit it off around the topic of training, right? You can't just bring a salesperson and expect them to know how all these new things work at their fingertips, especially if you bring in an account executive. I mean, it's why we exist. We exist the AI Journal exists to educate people on areas, but maybe that's the second part of the question. Maybe I'm going a bit too far too quickly, but if you can give us some examples, how can things like deep learning predictions help with greater forecast accuracy, help the team, help the sales team, help the business?
So I think, first of all, we look at this from a sales perspective. That's our domain expertise area. We're not trying to do this for manufacturing or for retail or anything like that. This is we're around the sales side.
Yeah.
And there are a number of use cases where AI can help in that sales scenario. One of those in particular is around predicting the outcome of a sale that we just talked about, which is obviously helping with with driving the things like forecast accuracy, etc.
Yes.
But there are other use cases within sales as well for predictions. So, for example, being able to I guess you'd call it opportunity qualification is probably a good example, right? So here you're trying to understand very early on in the process, or at some stage within the process, whether you should continue to put resources behind this, right? Because actually it's got legs, it's going to go somewhere, or actually there is a very low probability, and your time and resources would be better spent somewhere else, right? And that's a tough conversation to have with a salesperson, by the way, right? Because their opportunity is always going to be the most important. So that's a use case. Another is in going back to marketing. You were talking about is lead qualification. Can we qualify those leads, score those leads using higher accuracy, things like deep learning, etc. That's providing that. Etc. And then there's things like upsell, cross sell type stuff as well that we can use. If they bought product A, bought product B, etc. So this isn't a sort of a just around forecast accuracy. But what we've found is that this is going back to the car analogy. This is the first one that people are really sort of looking at, right, and seeing the highest value of return on their investment for.
Yeah.
And so we have we've looked at this area, as you can imagine, and looked at different ways of being able to solve this particular problem. Whether we could use just some rule-based type algorithms, right? So there's nothing wrong with just saying if then else. So you've got a human set of rules that we could apply to this. So that's one approach. But our sort of hypothesis was that, could we use some sort of AI to help predict the outcome of these opportunities? Could we find these hidden patterns which were beyond human sort of comprehension or visibility to be able to predict the outcomes on these deals? And could we, what's the best way of, or what's going to give us the most accurate prediction from that? And a lot of the research, as you know, is in the area of deep learning, right? All the efforts and research is all around deep learning, because they kind of reached some of the boundaries around the sort of linear regressions and random forest type algorithms, etc., which are good. But as I said, the deep learning piece is coming on, and in particular, where we did our research was around using tabular data in deep learning, which was again a very new and innovative use of deep learning. As your readers will know, it's particularly useful for image recognition and for neural language processing, etc. But could it be used for sales? That was our sort of hypothesis. Could we use this for sales? And the reason why we looked at this was because there were kind of three types of data in sales, right? There's the sort of profile data, which is just fixed throughout the whole deal. Basically, it's for this company. This company's this size. It's based in this country. It's got this. It's in this industry sector. It's in blah blah blah. And the opportunity is selling this product, and it's selling this, etc. Right? So those things tend to be fixed throughout, and so there's that kind of profile data that we see. The second set of data is what we would call the sort of the action data, which is, well, what value is the salesperson adding, right? Otherwise, we might as well not have them, right? So what are they doing on a day-to-day basis that is progressing that opportunity in the right direction or towards a positive outcome? And they aren't just phoning and emailing. They're actually other things like finding out who the competitor is, doing some research, finding out who the other people in the deal are, who the decision makers are, right? So it goes beyond just activity management and into these other areas. So you've got this whole other data set that's there that you can utilize.
Yeah.
And interestingly, that is time stamped, that data, right? Which is really interesting. And then the third set of data is what I would call the sort of cadence data that you get, which is this deal moving forward, right? Or is it going forwards and then backwards and forwards? And I know, an actual opportunity doesn't go beautifully through a pipeline, right? It never does. It kind of goes forwards and backwards a little bit, but it has a pattern, right? And you'll see patterns, and the patterns might be by customer, it might be by product, it might be by region, etc. So again, if we could take that cadence data and find patterns within that, and again, that's sequenced, right? So that's why we chose deep learning to see, because we've both got this profile data, but then we've got this sequenced data as well, okay? Which of course you can use recurring neural networks for and things.
Yeah.
So, having looked at all this, we put our hypothesis to sort of as a test, and we built some machine learning algorithms, etc., and realized that this does work, and it comes out a lot more accurate than the traditional machine learning approaches. And so we got obviously very excited about that, and we just we move forward in our investment and building of that solution, and that's what we use today to deliver.
Yeah, very cool.
So it's a very innovative area, right? And we don't actually know of anybody else that's using sort of neural networks and recurring neural networks to do this type of sales prediction. Most people are using the more traditional approaches with the data, etc.
Yeah. Hard beats obtained with neural networks. Very exciting. Yeah, I remember we're speaking to several companies that are trying to trial out different ways of getting involved with them. And I wonder, have you seen kind of or can you say what any of the big benefits have been since using this kind of new framework, Simon, and using the new kind of deep learning aspect and on the forefront? Is there anything that
so we've got some obvious benefits, which are the sort of ones up front. So we've got we're getting very, very high levels of accuracy. And again, this is a little bit, I quite get into my analogies, but it's a bit like doing weather forecasting, right? If you do a short range weather forecast, you're going to be pretty accurate, right? And so we're able to drive some very high level sort of short range accuracy models around sort of 95% sort of accuracy, which if you're doing forecasting for that quarter, right, are perfect for that type of scenario, right? And so we're getting some really good high level piece. But just like the weather, if you're doing more of a long range forecast, right, you haven't got quite as much information. You're making a few guesses and filling in the gaps a little bit, and so the accuracy starts to come down. But it's still very valuable, right? Knowing a medium or long range forecast, right? If you're planning your crops or whatever it is, the same thing if you're planning your business, right? If you know that you think it's going to drop or it's going to go up, or you're going to need more of this product versus that product, etc. And you can get those predictions out, then you can then tune them as time then moves by, and you. Like the weather forecast, you're constantly updating, and the time passes, and you know, so it gets more and more accurate. So that's one of the obviously key sort of technical pieces that you get from it. But kind of why is that valuable? I guess is the answer. And also, who are we delivering that value to? So, I mean, our sort of product goal, I suppose, rather than the vision of the business, but our product goal is to provide the most valuable AI platform for salespeople. Right, and that salespeople are not just the leaders and the managers, which is where a lot of people will focus this this value, but it's actually trying to get to the individuals as well, right? So what can we give to the individuals who are running their businesses and trying to drive their own sales and deliver that? And then we try to then, or not, don't try. Our focus is around the providing this platform for a citizen data scientist. So we're not expecting a data scientist, a sort of deep learning expert to come in and be able to run this. This needs to be a no-code, multi-tenanted SaaS platform, which is what it is, right? So you can come in, it's all point and click, and you can move around. So we're making sure, again, like the Tesla, that a normal person can use this, right? Despite the fact of all the AI and everything else that's going underneath the bonnet. So that's quite a complicated thing to try and balance. You've got this sort of, we're trying to address all these different people that we can deliver it to, the person that's going to actually do it, and then trying to make it valuable in its own right. So that's big, but there are some byproducts of this process as well. So not only do we get the accuracy, which is good for that, but we also get the something that we've been working on sort of quite recently, but we also get the explanation coming out, right? So we've now introduced what's called explainable AI for deep learning, which is again is a very innovative area. Traditionally, as I'm sure yourself and others know, that it's really easy-ish to explain coming out of a linear regression model or something like that. What routes you took, etc. And then if you can get the explanation out. But some recent algorithms have allowed us now to be able to actually get to bring out the importance of the features, etc., and the contributions, and so we can actually now present back to the salesperson or the sales leaders or whatever the actual importance of each field within their CRM, right? And so that allows us to explain why this opportunity is at 22% when the salesperson thinks it's at 74%, right? And have a sensible discussion then with their manager why they're wanting to forecast it, right? Okay. And say, well, this says that it's, we haven't won many in this region where you've been selling it for this product, whatever. These are all, contributing negatively to it. So you can have that sort of sensible conversations there. Also, that information we've found feeds back into into marketing, right? Because if you're able to then say, we're really good at being able, we win, a lot of deals, or we have this win percentage, whatever, with this this product in this industry. With that, go and find more people like that, please, right? And therefore we'll do that. So it helps with that sort of loop back into that piece there. So it's more than just the prediction piece that's coming out, and it's what you do with that prediction, and whether you look at it individually or you aggregate that information, you get different value based on the individual or aggregation viewpoint, from different people.
Do you think they could have done with some deep learning for the Monaco Grand Prix yesterday?
I think they could have.
I missed that, but there is a lot of AI that's going on in the background there.
Just a bit late.
Oh, was it? I didn't see.
A little bit late. No, but that's really cool, because you can see, to me, it kind of lights it up, because you think, what reason I like AI, or reason I like these kind of tools like Cloudapps, is it's not always easy to have that conversation with yourself, knowing you're wrong after using your own kind of modeling, I guess, or you're using your own factors saying why it's going ahead. But then at the same time, it's maybe not always going to be right, but it does, like you said, Simon, and you'll probably know about this, Andy, to direct those marketing people, and to direct me, and to direct them to think this is who I need to go find, or actually I've got it completely wrong. Like when we started, full transparency, I was going after the wrong people that would want to use our services or use our business. And you think if I had something that would just constantly, and the reason I love machine learning, and the reason, although it does, and we'll never fix the issues now, and 1,000 years from now, there's always going to be things where it could be fixed, or could be better, or could be this. But I think it will always, it can constantly learn. So it's constantly learning, constantly giving you better feedback. And that is so valuable in today, because when you've got a kind of clear set agenda, or something that's more viewable, you can make better decisions, right? You can make much better decisions.
Indeed.
And you can waste in time.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
Yeah. And so part of this is actually how you present this information back to those decision makers. So as I said, it's all very well having the accuracy of the model that sits underneath, but it's actually got to be usable by the individual that's then going to make decisions. And so, we actually provide some pre-built UI that goes into Salesforce. We've got some pre-built integration that moves data back into across a very secure environment, and allows either the manager, the leaders, etc., to be able to see that matrix that we talked about. So that's part of our solution. Or on an individual opportunity, they can look at exactly what the prediction is, the explanation of that, what's contributing negatively, what's contributing positively to that deal. And as you quite rightly say, to me, that is then an additional piece of information to help drive the car, right? So it's not going to put the brakes on for you and tell you you can't do that. But what it does do is that it says, this is, it challenges you basically, and in that situation. And there's always, in sales, there's always going to be exceptions. Otherwise, you'd never break into new markets, you'd never break into new industries, you'd never break. So, you've got some individuals that the AI will never work for, because they are these sort of, these new business people going out for new geographies, or whatever it is that you're working in. But at least then they'll be able to pick what's likely to be more successful in those regions or industries or whatever.
Makes me think how much they might have got it wrong back in like the 1970s and 1980s, before these models existed. Like how long were they doing the wrong thing for until they actually got the right thing? I always wonder, because now you can get corrected a lot quicker with technology.
You can course correct, going back to the analogy, but you can course correct and do that. The other thing that I think I didn't mention actually around using deep learning, and one of the advantages, this wasn't one we set out with, but has become a positive. There's being honest about that, was that deep learning adapts to change much quicker than traditional machine learning. And because we're going through this big change at the moment with remote working and the way we've just been talking about, the sort of hybrid working, etc., and the way that salespeople are changing, we're finding these deep learning models are actually reacting to that change and picking up that change much quicker, and are quicker to learn from it, if you sort of mean, rather than that sort of traditional stuff hanging around and impacting the training of these models. And so our customers are benefiting from that, because it allows them to be more agile in the way that they're working.
Yeah, love it. And maybe then to look at a few trends. I don't know. So I was having this conversation the other day on another live interview that we were doing, and he was saying how their business, they're in the e-commerce business. So they're looking at, and they use a lot of AI, and they use a lot of predictions, and they use a lot to understand what might be selling to the right customer. And you should go watch it. To anyone watching, it's a great interview. But to give this as an example, I'd love to see what you both think. Maybe Andy, starting with you, and Simon. It might be a simple no, but what do you think? Are there any things that are coming up, any trends that you're seeing that's kind of changing how sales is happening, or what we can learn from? As you said, Simon, so there's new industries starting all the time. There's new, like TikTok changed advertising, and it changed, like, look how quickly it became bigger search engine than Google. It had more traffic than Google in a record amount of time. Like, it's ridiculous. Do you see anything that's happening with changing that kind of avenue? And it's more of a broader question, not necessarily just tied to Cloudapps, but you can see it kind of changing over the next few years, or something that might be coming in, like the metaverse or something.
Yeah, and mine's not going to be as radical as the metaverse, but I think going back to the conversation earlier, the whole piece around technology enablement for sales it's a really hot area, right? It's a really hot area, and I think a lot of customers have sort of jumped on the bandwagon and got lots of tech, lots of stuff, lots of tools. So, I mean, we have Cloudapps. We use sales tools and marketing tools, and we're not a huge business. We're an agile software business. So for me, I think Simon alluded to earlier, is that there's going to be some consolidation, and that doesn't necessarily mean companies buying companies. There's going to be customers using a platform to be able to collect all of this into one place, and to be able to utilize the stuff that we produce and sell, to be able to predict on collected data, right? So all of this coming into one place, because you'll have people using the voice analyzer, looking at conversational analysis, that type of stuff. Others will be looking at their outreach and putting sales tech in place to make sure that information's with the right sales reps at the right time, telling the right message. And then you've got obviously the CRM, Salesforce, Dynamics, and HubSpot, and all the rest. So bringing that all into one area, and then being able to use predictions that take multiple feeds into one area will lead to, I think, a unified end customer experience. And that's what this is all about. This is we're doing all of this to help the customer at the end of the day, so they get a consistent, concise message and the right product at the right time. So if we're fixing all this stuff now, and this is where we encourage people, the question we get is, can you take a feed in to your stuff to be able to? We say, if it talks to the CRM, that's great, and yes, we can take a feed, but ideally you'd like it to be in one place, so we can actually take advantage of that in real time. So it's a bit of a lame answer to the future of something. Simon, you might come up with something different.
No, I agree. I think this is very early days. I think it's it reminds me actually of when I was back in my Siebel days selling CRM, and people were like, "What does that acronym mean?" Right? In fact, I think it was Tom Siebel that invented it. I think it was a sales system until then, and a marketing system, and a service system. And so it was an educational exercise. And then I then went on to Salesforce, where it was all around SaaS, and and that again was a whole educational piece around it. And so I feel that's kind of where I normally sit. And I think at this stage, we're at that early stage where our customers are coming to us and saying, I don't just need some technology. I need somebody to help educate us and help us understand what value this could bring to us. And so we kind of have this sort of dual value to them, or dual purpose for them, to guide them through this this sort of situation, and but both from a domain expertise, but also from a technology perspective. And out of it, they had a whole set of learnings which go beyond what we've been doing here about IT and technology and AI. What's worked for them. Sometimes we put their data through, and there just isn't enough, right, to solve the particular use case that they've got. They just don't collect enough data, or it's collected too late, or whatever. You just can't. So their data strategy does not support, but that's still valuable to them, right? Because if they want to do it in the future, they can go back and do that. So and that's one thing that we do. We kind of, one of our little lines is your data, our science, right? That's kind of one of our little catch lines, because actually with AI you can't know how valuable it's going to be for you as a business without it being applied to your data, right? It's point us turning up and saying we can get a 95% accuracy is not much use to anybody, right? Because that's somebody else's data, right? Okay, so what we do is we provide a kind of proof of value process that we go through with them to take their data, and through an signed NDA, a mutual NDA that we sign, etc. They share that with us, and in about a 3-week time frame, we set an environment up, and we build some models. They've got full access to all that. They can see the models being built. They can build some other models themselves, etc. We'll optimize them. We'll do all the feature selections and all that type of stuff for them, and guide them through. And it's a sort of educational process for them as well. It's almost like a training exercise around AI and using deep learning, and they love it. They get on the on the application, and they're building their own models and putting their own features in. So, I think this will be better, and let's have a competition and see who's going to get the most accurate models. And so we have that period of time, and then at the end of it, they're able to then articulate. We can put a joint ROI case together, and then articulate the value back to the business of which areas where we've got the right data to be able to do this now, and where we might have to wait or enhance it in other areas, etc. With that, so it's a different sales process than people saying, I need some AI, I need this specific AI, what features have you got, etc. It's more of a holistic type approach that we need to take with them. So.
Yeah, I like it. Makes you sound like you make it fun as well with all the competitions and everything, which is always an important part of learning.
Yeah, and that's how we help with gathering the data as well. So these sort of solution got one solution that requires data to be successful, another solution that helps produce that data, right, or helps encourage that data out to the salesperson. And obviously we've got ideas for how we can do that with AI in the future, which we'll share at a future date as well. So,
sorry, Andy, you were saying.
No, I was saying it is fun when your customers come to you having discovered new use cases.
Well. I was going to say, you must see some crazy things. I was asking someone, I was like, what's the craziest one that they've come to you and been like, oh, we never saw that. Like, with all our predictions, we never predicted that. Like, that's a use case you got out of it. It's quite cool.
My favorite actually is one around adherence to discounts. So what the salespeople were doing was giving too much discount, right, or giving inappropriate discount codes, etc. And what they did was they used the AI to find patterns where that was happening, and then highlight the deals that were more likely to have got the wrong discount, and then challenge those. And they immediately found X 100,000 value out of that. So it was a very simple, quick, weak exercise that generated a lot of ROI. So it's and that was just from their own imagination doing that. So you provide the tools, and they come up with their own ideas.
Yeah, give them the tools and they'll go build instead of we'll build for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
I like that approach. Andy, have you seen anything that you kind of shocked you or like made you think, oh, that's an interesting, intricative way of building a new solution or building better ROI?
That one was from the world of sales, thinking, that probably would have been really, really useful back in the day. The other one was looking at, I suppose we're in this, is it called the Great Resignation or whatever?
Yeah.
There is a lot of churn going on in headcount. So talent retention is a really big challenge for organizations. So being able to use AI and in a particular case, our platform to be able to predict who is likely to churn within the business is, again, that's not a sort of standard sales prediction solution we set out to build, but the platform is there to be able to help customers see that happening. So you can actually either act or don't act.
I like it.
That's cool. The AI can find patterns in people's behaviours and things like that, as you can imagine, off the sales data.
Wouldn't want to apply an AI to my own pattern of behaviour, because I'd be thinking, oh God, like I need to stop doing this, or I need to stop doing that, I need to stop eating out so much. But hey, one day.
It does hold a mirror up against your opportunities, which is sometimes not welcomed, but always of value.
Yeah, I was going to say, you always want to know it, but you just don't want to know it.
It's like your own health. Someone telling you that you're not healthy, but you don't want to know. But then you do. But then now you've got to do something about it.
Or you get the nice surprise, and you're just like, yes, knew it was. Like I'm bang on point, and it's just makes you better than you were. So you get that flip side as well, which is always good. And it's been a lot of fun, and I'd recommend to anyone watching. So looking through what you're doing at Cloudapps, and you've got one of the best resources I see as a personal opinion, which is an ROI calculator. So as soon as I see something like that, I don't know if it's just my mindset, but I'm very visual. Like I've got a whiteboard over there, and I always have to display things out. And if someone just speaks at me, I'm like, well, show me on a screen. I'll probably be able to grasp the idea a lot quicker. And that to me, an ROI calculator, it's a comment of like, oh God, this is how much I'm missing out on, or oh God, that's how much I can get. Like that's what I can do, and that's how I can give back or improve the team. So I think that's a awesome tool that we've got on Cloudapps that I recommend everyone to go try out before finishing off this conversation. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. And Andy, Simon, really appreciate you taking the time. I don't know if you got any kind of closing comments or anything you'd recommend to the audience. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
No, I mean, thanks for having us, Tom. Really enjoyed it. Always enjoy working with you at the AI Journal. Yes, and also, thanks for inviting Cloudapps onto this. It's great. It's great to be part of it. As you mentioned, we've got some resources on the website. Contact either of us individually. Love having conversations with people. So yeah, again, many thanks.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
No, I appreciate it. And to everyone watching, really appreciate it. If you can let us know who you'd like us to bring on next. We always try to bring the best people in the industry and in that game to come and speak to you, as is the situation today and in many other cases with Simon and Andy joining us. And as Andy said, I encourage you to reach out to Simon and Andy to learn about what they're doing. Get yourself on that free ROI calculator. Check out the blog section. I was having a read through yesterday before this call. Some real brilliant insights. And as you said, sometimes you say the word CRM, people don't understand it. And now we're at the stage where you can get always AI powering your CRM. So definitely a company to go speak to, and really appreciate the time and looking forward to the next one. Be a good week.
Cheers, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks
Take care.
much.